Hey everybody, welcome here to Musicians Edition. I'm Evan on the piano, and in this video we're going to be learning about transposition on the piano. So transposition is one of those very sophisticated sounding words that you can learn about to sound super smart as a musician. That's going to be our goal here. It's really not too difficult. All you're doing is you're going to take the key a song is in and shift it to a different key. So that key is, it's our tonic, our center, or that note or chord that the key is revolving around. We're going to shift it either higher or lower. And for us on the piano, that means going to the left or to the right. So for example, a song can be written in A major, and I can transpose it or shift it to C major, D major, G sharp major, whatever other scale I might want to. Our only rule is that if we start in a major, we're going to stay in a major. If we start in a minor, we're going to stay in a minor. We can't flip-flop from happy to sad, but we can shift it from left to right to have any other note be our tonic. So the reason I might do this, a couple main reasons. If I'm a singer and I need a song to be shifted to better fit my vocal range, I can transpose the song. For example, I cannot sing Ariana Grande songs in the natural key that she sings them in, so me being a guy with a much lower range, I might shift it down quite a lot to better fit my range. Another reason could be if we're playing with other instruments that are in a specific tuning, we might have to match them by changing the key that we're playing that song in. And other instruments can transpose by like tuning their strings or tuning the notes differently. On guitar, they have the capo that they can put on the fretboard to shift it higher or lower as well too. On piano, it's not that easy to tune and detune our piano just to play one song. So we go ahead and shift higher or lower by moving our hands, more to the left or to the right to align to this new key we're going to be playing in. So we're going to look at transposing melodies as well as chords. Some easy methods to go with each of these. Melodies is going to focus on knowing your intervals. Chords is going to focus on knowing your scale degrees. So those are two things you're really going to want to know. We'll go through this and not make it absolutely necessary for you to know scale degrees, but it's definitely going to be helpful. Scale degrees help us in a lot of ways, and I've been doing a series on scale degrees that this video does fit in. But if you're not familiar, we'll still present it in a way that you can understand it too, so you can come away still knowing what transposition is. So with that, we're going to hop on the piano. Let's take a look at this. So let's do melodies first. What's really cool about melodies is that the recognition of the song or melody does not change when you transpose it. All we're doing again is just moving it higher or lower in pitch. But the recognizable parts of the melody are the intervals between the individual notes being played. We don't change those. And the timing of each of those notes. And we're not changing that either. The entire piece is just getting shifted higher or lower, but you still recognize those melodies. They still sound the same, so you don't have to feel bad about being a singer who has to transpose it down into your particular vocal range. You don't have to stress yourself of trying to go higher or lower than you can, because everyone's still gonna know that song and that melody. It's just being played a little higher or a little lower. So for example, I can play a melody that I've transposed, and I bet you still know what it is. And that would be Happy Birthday, but not played in its original key. I shifted it down 3 half steps from the original key of C major down to A major. So it's played lower, but you don't really notice it because, again, the distance between each of those notes stayed the same, and the timing has stayed the same. The whole thing is just a little bit lower to fit a certain range or whatever. So here's our sheet. You can see this is it written in C major, the original key. We would start on G, go to A, back to G, up to C, finish on B, so that's second one here, up to D, C, and that is the first part of Happy Birthday there. When we shift it down to A major, there's a couple ways to look at this. You can look at it by our tonic was C, and it's shifting to A. That is going down 3 notes. So from C, that is 1, 2, 3. That's 3 half steps from C to A. And every note we play here is going to get shifted down 3 half steps, just like we did with our tonics there. So the first notes of this song is G, when we're playing it in the original key. we can just shift that down 3 notes. 1, 2, 3, and now we're starting it on E. And look at that sheet music for A major, that first note is indeed E. And every other note is following that same exact pattern. So I went from G, G, A, G, C, B, to all of that, every single note being shifted down by 3. Same sounding melody, just shifted a little bit lower, and that's the idea behind transpositioning of a melody. So I can go ahead and look at every note, count down by 3 to figure it out. I can also just go down by 3 on the original one and then remember the spacing between each one after that. So for example, I can count down from 3 to F sharp, F, and E. That gets me to E. And then I can just remember the spacing of what notes came next. So from G, I went to that 1 note higher in the scale. So from E, I go to that 1 note higher in the scale to F sharp, and then back to E, and then that same kind of a pattern as well too. So intervals of each individual note being shifted down 3, I can think of and count out, or I can just shift down that first note and then count higher or lower from there, essentially. So I went up 1, I went down 1, and just remembering that as I transpose it to my other key.
This lesson is brought to you by the Musician's Edition practice book. Make goals and keep track of progress throughout the whole year. When you're done with this video lesson, don't forget to mark this practice time in your Musician's Edition practice book. Now back to the video.
And that is one way to transpose melodies. That's the easiest way, is using intervals in such a way like that. Another way you can look at it, if you're familiar with scale degrees, we most typically apply it to like transposing chords, and that's really easy to understand. With melodies, you can do it as well too, and it's me being so accustomed to scale degrees, it makes sense to me, but if you're not really familiar with scale degrees, it can be a bit more confusing. So just to take a look at this though, here's the scale degrees to C major, our original key. It's all the white keys. Our first note in the scale is C, and then we just count up 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, all the way up to B, all those white keys. And then the scale degrees to A major, there are 3 sharps to it. So it's A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp. Those are our 7 notes in A major. We look at both these melodies we played here. The scale degrees are the same for each. So in that C major, we play a 5, 5, 6, 5. Look back at those scale degrees. That 5 is G. That 6 is A. That 1 was C. 7 is B. And that's another way to look at it, just by looking at those scale degrees. And once you do understand those scale degrees, you can really easily transpose that melody, or what we're about to look at, those chords, really easily. So again, looking at those scale degrees for A, same numbers match up. 5, 5, 6, 5, 1, 7, same as what we just played in C major. But now I'll shift it over. That 5, 5, 6, 5 is E, E, F sharp, E. And then that 1, 7 was A, and then G sharp. So 2 ways to look at transposing those melodies. Interval is typically the most common way. Scale degree is really going to mostly come in handy with these chords, which we're about to look at. Let's look at a more traditional song for chords here. A really easy and popular one to play on piano is Let It Be by the Beatles. The chorus has 4 chords: A minor, G, F, and C. Here's those written out there. They play it using inversions typically, but we can just look at it like this to make it easier. A minor, G, F, coming up to C. Those are our 4 chords. All right, those are our 4 chords to this song. Again, Let It Be by the Beatles. That is written in C major. The 4th chord being that tonic, that C. Here's the scale degrees for C major. We're going to focus a lot on scale degrees for these chords. We are playing a 6, 5, 4, 1. If you are a rhythm guitarist, if you are a pianist, this is really common ways to talk about chord progressions to those you might be playing with. I'm playing a 6, 5, 4, 1 in C major. language you really do want to be able to understand here. And looking at those scale degrees for C major, our 6, that's that A, our 5, that's that G, our 4 is the F, and the 1 is the C. So that is how we get that 6, 5, 4, 1. 6, 5, 4. We can go down to the 1 or up to the 1 of C. And now we're going to use those numbers, that's 6, 5, 4, 1, and we are going to shift that to any other major key, and we can play these same chords, and we can play this same song as long as we transpose our melody as well too in any other key. So you're playing with someone and they say, hey, that's a little bit too high, let's take it down a bit. So instead of that C major, give me a 6, 5, 4, 1 in A major. And to play that in A major, let's look at our scale degrees for A major again. That 6, 5, 4, 1 is going to be found on F sharp, E, D, and then A. And for the chords, if it was a minor, it stays a minor. If it was a major, it stays a major. So that's going to end up giving us F sharp minor as the 6 that we start off at, E major as the 5, D major as the 4, and let's finish off on that A major chord, the 1, right there. And so this progression, these numbers still give it the same feel, the same, song in general. It's just, again, shifting it higher or lower, in this case, a bit lower. So this is our new progression in A major, 6, 5, 4, 1. We've just transposed it. It doesn't, obviously, it can be in any key. It can be to shifting it up to E major, shifting it down to G sharp major, whatever it is, we can do it by using these scale degrees, counting out that scale, figuring out those 7 scale degrees for that particular scale, and we can do this for any key. If you don't want to do it with scale degrees, if that seems like too much, you can also do it with intervals. You can also go from that C major, and we know going down to A major was 1, 2, 3 half steps. We can look at every chord we're playing and just move it down 3 steps as well too, instead of looking at scale degrees. So for example, that first chord we played, it was an A minor, and I can count down 3, 1, 2, 3, and that also gives me that F sharp minor that I swapped it for in that A major scale. So intervals to shift those chords also applies just like we did in the melody. Scale degrees is just that more typical method when you are looking at transposing chords though, so always helpful to have down. And again, if you're doing a song where you do transpose those chords, don't forget to transpose that melody. So those vocals for Let It Be, if you are singing it, you're playing with the singer, or you're playing it just with your right hand, make sure you do transpose that to the same amount as well, using that scale degree method or counting those intervals, so you can make sure you're playing everything within the same key. And that is it on transposition. So hopefully that makes sense for you, and you can now go ahead and sound super smart with your friends, talking about how you know about this word transposition and how to use it. You can be able to play with singers, play with yourself as the singer, and shift songs to different keys, and hopefully be able to use this. So do check out my other videos on scale degrees. This is going to be, I believe, the last video in that series before we jump over to something else. Scale degrees have been really helpful to help us learn composition and chord progression, so if you're interested in those, make sure you check out those videos. Have fun playing there, and we'll see you next time.